So a little different topic, but it's on the same theme of preparing ourselves for Ram Navami, coming up soon. Morality and morality corrupts it. Nice title. So as we heard, so this is similar to the theme of Maryada Purushottama, the first topic that we discussed, that Ramachandra is particularly appreciated as the perfect example of an individual ideal character and the follower of Dharma, the codes of conduct given to us in the Vedas. He sets the standards. And there's many subtleties, many very, very nice subtleties in his establishing codes of conduct. So we covered some of them. Here's one of the codes of conduct. It's a person of character, in his case, ideal character, that his father said, and he upheld the word of his father, because there's a principle of character. Come. Because more people are going to come in and do the same thing, we'll do the same thing. Invite them to come around and see the screen over here. Thank you. To uphold one's own word. So a few years ago, I was a new devotee. And one of the things that I've learned as a new devotee, there was a godbrother that repeated this phrase over and over: a man is only as good as his word. There's a common saying like that. So you give your word, and you keep your word. If you're not sure, don't give your word. But if you give your word, it's a must. What to speak of, because his father said it's a must. And, you know, despite all odds and persuasions this way and that way, was the order of his father. It must be followed. So, we're going to hear a little bit about that. Then Vibhishan, and the merciful nature of a person who is moral. He's very kind, compassion. We had a little discussion after the Sunday feast class about Karuna Rasa. I hope you all received. If you didn't, you can complain to somebody. If you're on a WhatsApp group, you received this. There's a little chart with the 5 primary rasas, 7 secondary rasas, what the names, what the characteristics of each of the rasas is, and the presiding deity. So Karuna Rasa is, the Ramachandra is the presiding deity. And it comes, the discussion went like this today. There are different meanings in English of the word karuna. So it can mean compassion. It's common, compassion. Very kind. But in that kindness, there's some feelings, and some of the feelings are intensified, difficult situations that one is put in or others are put in because of that situation. And Ramachandra is the presiding deity of that particular rasa. So Vibhishan was in a compromised situation, being the younger brother of Ravana. How'd you like to have Ravana as your older brother? Phew. So on the one hand, he was loyal. As far as the codes of conduct are concerned, he was loyal. But loyalty didn't mean just toss his compass out the window and do whatever he wanted because he wanted. It was he would give wise guidance. We're going to hear some of that wise guidance, and speaking with little, at risk, of his life to a person who was very vicious. So when it was no longer a possibility, it's something, it's not the same, but it's something very similar to the role that Vidura had. He was living with his elder brother and the sons of his elder brother, and they were, very ambitious and unscrupulous and murderous. And he knew it, and he advised them otherwise. And at a certain point in time, he left because there wasn't any service for him there. He tried and tried, and so Vibhishan similarly. We'll hear about the surrender of Vibhishan. It's a big topic in Ramayana. The big topic in Bhagavad Gita, a big topic in anything spiritual. Take shelter of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Very important. Taking Ramchandra's vow when he very first entered, it's the very first beginning of the Aranyakanda. He enters into the forest and he meets sages. And sages are being harassed by Rakshasas. And Ramchandra, and he gestures to a stack of bones, the remains of sages that were devoured, literally, by Rakshasas. And the sages, being powerful, they could have use up or destroy the Rakshasas by their austerity powers, but they wanted Ramchandra to do instead. So we're going to hear a little bit about morality and morality corrupted. And then the slaying of Vali. We heard a little bit about, we're going to hear some more about the slaying of Vali. So we'll start with the first one. There's the word of Dasarath to enter into the Dandak forest. So we recognize this nice B.G. Sharma painting, close up. On the left, that's Kaikeyi, and on the right is Dasarath. So there's many, many, many things leading up to this, including the difficulty by providential arrangement. Come around over here. Here's a screen. If you sit over there, you won't be able to see it. We'll also be unhappy because you won't be able to see it. So you make us happy. Thank you. That's a good idea. Those of you that are already sitting, come up a little bit because some people will come a little bit late. It just works like that. Okay, Kaikeyi, the 2 fingers up, means you all know the history, but it's nice to hear the history again and again. So there was a situation where Dasarath was in a battle, and he was in a life-threatening situation in the battle. Kaikeyi, being a young princess, queen, she had a Kshatriya spirit. She took he took him off the battle, took him on the chariot and took him off the battle, and nursed him to survive. So he felt, we heard from the midday session, one of the requirements of good character. One of the requirements of good character is when you receive some favor from someone, in addition to the convention of saying thank you, you go out of your way to do something that's meaningful to them as an expression of your gratitude. So he, Dasarath, as an expression of his gratitude, he offered 2 boons to one of his wives, Kaikeyi. So he said, not now, sometime. And Mantra reminded her, ask for your 2 boons. So she's asking for her 2 boons. Remember when? Yes, yes. You made a promise? Yes, yes. You keep your word? Yes, yes. Here they are. Grant that my son Bharata be crowned king instead of Ram, and send Ram into exile into the forest for 14 years. Dasarath doesn't look very happy, does he? And Kaikeyi looks pretty indignant, doesn't she? And so there's a whole long section of those words of Kaikeyi and the impact that those words of Kaikeyi had on everybody, starting with Dasarath, but everybody. There's the priest trying to give reason to Kaikeyi, no reason at all. The ladies, there's Ram helping Sita wear forest attire, with her sari underneath. Who knows how that worked, but anyways, heading for the forest for 14 years. Now, she insisted, Ram reasoned, she insisted, Ram reasoned again, she insisted, so he accepted. So the three of them, Ram, Sita, and the third brother, Lakshmana. Here they are, dressed in simple attire as opposed to royal attire, and Dasarath was devastated to see them in that condition. Now here they're not dressed in forest attire, but that's okay. B.G. Sharma has artist privileges. He can paint them as he likes. So off they go. And Ram leading, Sita behind him, and Lakshmana as the first manifestation. So the position, the mood of Lakshmana is the mood of a servant, and there's a friendship, because they're brothers, there's friendship feature of that relationship also. But he's the representative of, he's the guru representative of, and the giver of love for Ram to anybody that they meet in the course of the whole 14 years in the forest. There they are, nicely dressed for forest attire. Here's a verse from the 5th canto Bhagavatam. In other words, this pastime is so celebrated, it's found in many, 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 many places. The 5th canto is one of those many places. Since Lord Ramachandra is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Vasudeva, he's not attached to anything in this world. He is the most beloved super soul of all self-realized souls, and he is their intimate friend. He is full of all opulences, that's Bhagavan. Therefore, he could not possibly have suffered because of separation from his wife, nor could he have given up his wife and Lakshmana, his younger brother. To give up either would have been absolutely impossible. Now that seems contradictory then to the pastime, because the pastime says otherwise, but then the transcendental explanation from the Srimad Bhagavatam Canto 5 is, it's a lila. That's pretty clever, right? Just give it a nice label, it's a lila, and it's not really what happened, it's really what, it just appeared to happen. Rather to say it's lila means, as we discussed earlier, the pastimes of the Personality of Godhead in Srimad Bhagavatam and the pastimes of the Personality of Godhead in Ramayana. It's rasa-filled. There's verse in Bhagavad Gita. One of the verses in Bhagavad Gita says, the reason for Krishna's appearance. Let's say the verse together. Start Paritranaya Sadhunam. Paritranaya Sadhunam Vinashaya Chaduskritam Dharma Sangstapanartaya Sambhavami Yuge Yuge. So Krishna gives 3 reasons why he appears. To Pritranaya Sadhunam, give protection to the devotees, the sadhus. Vinashaya duskritam, the duskritis, to curb their influence. And dharma sangstha, to restore dharma when there's discrepancy in dharma, to restore it. So those are three good reasons. There's an additional reason that's a transcendental reason and a personal reason, and that is he is experiencing rasa and he wants to stimulate in his devotees the experience of rasa. And so he does things that stimulate rasa. So here it's saying it's lila. He can't possibly have experienced separation or banished. It's not in his dictionary, not his vocabulary. But there's a lila that looks like it, and we discussed it already. But it's the appearance of something like that, looks like that in this realm. But it's the proper understanding is it's a expression of enhancing or strengthening or amplifying the primary rasa with some difficulty, and the some difficulty is the lila. But is it possible for the sun and the sunshine to be separated? Not possible. They're inseparable. That's what this verse is saying. That Sita and Ram are inseparable. And not exactly in the same, but in a very similar way, Lakshman. You don't become Lakshman. There's no become. You can be an assistant of, or a servant of, or dasa anudas of Lakshman. You can be an assistant and accept the same mood as Lakshman. Just be the menial servant in any circumstance, in any place. One can do that. It's like in Krishna's pastime. It's very nice. It's very similar. So very similar is when there's different situations, but one of the situations when Krishna was ending his pastimes, there's a really nice section of the end of the 10th canto, the beginning of the 11th canto, Bhagavatam. Similar. It's not the same, but it's quite similar. Krishna was considering, now my pastimes are complete. The demons have been destroyed, and the Dharma has been reestablished, and my purposes in appearing are now done. But after I depart, the yadus, my associates, the yadus, they're invincible. And Kali Yuga is going to make corruption of everything that's good. May become corrupt, or something will become corrupt. There's going to be a mess. So my pastimes are not complete until I remove them from the face of the earth. Because no one else can do that. I have to do that, so I'll do that. But he did it with a lila. He didn't personally do it. He had them annihilate themselves. But then part of the contemplation is the persons who are taking part in Krishna's pastimes, similarly to those who were taking part in Ramchandra's pastimes, there are eternal associates. Lakshmana is one. And Krishna had eternal associates who descended from the spiritual world to join him with his pastimes in this earthly realm. In addition, there were others. There were demigods. At Krishna's request, they took birth on earth first to assist him in his pastimes and to partake part in his pastime, to experience rasa, to assist him as servants in the mood of being the servant of the master, but experience rasa. Now they had to go back to their demigod realm, or expansions of the demigods had to go back to the demigod realm. So different persons went to different destinations at the time of Krishna's departure. And the eternal associates are eternal. You don't become an eternal associate. You become an assistant of. That's Raga Nuga Bhakti. That's a teaching that's part of Rupa Goswami's principle of how you perform bhakti. You perform sadhana, and then there's a stage of sadhana where you become very focused on one of the eternal associates of Krishna. And you take the mood of being the assistant of this associate or that associate in this rasa or that rasa, and that secondary rasa along with the primary rasa. It's very refined, and there's a science to it all. So, again, you don't become Lakshmana, you can become an assistant. Lakshmana doesn't become Lakshmana, he's an eternal associate. Just as Balaram is an eternal expansion of Krishna, or Nityananda is an eternal expansion, the same category of tattva, of Lord Chaitanya. You don't become Lord Nityananda, you don't become... I'm mentioning this because some question came up in the course of this visit. You don't become, you can be an assistant of. So there's no question of separation between Sita and Ram, between Ram and Lakshman. There was a pastime that looked like it, but it's a pastime. It's a display of love. And those that are not devotees can't understand it. It's like it bounces. It doesn't go in. And one who becomes inclined in devotion, it not only goes in, but it's very relishable. It's a certain type of loving exchange. So following the order of his father was one of the first of these 4 items. Now accepting Vibhishan. This is a nice painting, I like it. On the left, that's Vibhishan, that darkish complexioned person, and behind him are his 4 ministers. And he had mystic powers, one of those mystic powers, so he could travel where he likes without even a vimana. He just rose from the assembly. We'll hear some of the details preceding. And he wanted to take shelter of Ram. He wanted to take shelter of Ram, but he was doing some duty prior to that. That was the duty to the personality of Godhead in separation. So here he's being received. There's 4 persons on the receiving end. Ram, Lakshman, and there's, looks like Hanuman and Sugriva. And Sugriva is the doubtful one. So a little bit background. Ravana had the same father as Vibhishan, but their disposition was quite different. So one of the things that he did, he underwent great austerities. He got benedictions in reciprocation with those great austerities, and he became very powerful. His father was Vishravas, and the Vaishravana is hearing distinctly, and he was Ravana, roaring. That is, when he was lifting, he went to Kailash, and he saw Lord Shiva and Parvati seated together on top of... One of you is coughing a lot. Is it you that's coughing a lot? I'm a little concerned. If whatever it is that's causing the coughing, it may spread to the others. What to do? We'll put you in quarantine or something like that, or tell your nervous system to not cough. So until we're done, then you can cough all you like. I'm a little concerned. Sorry. Uh-oh, he looks sad. Okay. So Ravana, being very strong, he started to put his arms underneath Mount Kailash. Very powerful. And as he was lifting the Mount Kailash, Parvati felt the trembling of the mountain. And what's that? He said, don't worry, it's just this puny guy, Ravana. I'll just put my toe on the top of the mountain and he won't be able to lift anymore. You know the story. And so, did your son know the story? You've heard this before? No? Okay. So, Ravana had how many heads? 10. And how many arms? 20. And so, with 20 arms and very, very powerful, he started to lift the mountain by pressing his toe on the mountain top. His arms got squished underneath the mountain. And it was very painful. One could hear his roaring in pain. So he had a different name before, but he became nicknamed Ravana. It was painful. And then when Lord Shiva understood, now he's learned his lesson, he lifted his toe. So then he was using the veins in his body were bulging. So he was using the veins in his bulging veins in his body like a musical instrument and playing a musical instrument, and it was very pleasant. So he did some service for Lord Shiva. So here it shows with instruments and other things, singing. Here's the family line. So it's not so important, but I put it in anyways. Pulasya was one of the direct sons of Lord Brahma. And then one of the sons of Pulasya was Vishrava. Vishrava married the daughter Bhardraj Muni. So Brahmana marrying a Brahmani. And they had one son. The son later became Kuvera, but his birth name was Vishrava, Vaishravana. That's Kuvera. But then later there was a demon whose name was Sumali, and Sumali had a daughter named Kaikashi, and he thought, hey, Kaikashi, supposing you could persuade this same Vishrava to become your husband or a father of your children. So following the wisdom or the advice, instruction of her father, Kaikashi went to the ashram of Vishrava. And Vishrava, she came at the wrong time. He was engaged in a yajna. You know the story. She was engaged in a yajna. So while he was engaged in the yajna, she just stood there silently. She didn't interrupt him. But, moving her foot or her toe of her foot across the earth and, like there was the knock on the door instead of knocking on the door. She just being polite, Rakshasi young girl. And he understood without her asking what she wanted. And he agreed. He said, but you've come at the wrong time. And so therefore, when there are children that are born, you're going to have two sons that are very terrible sons, and one daughter that's a very terrible son. But you'll have one son of the 4 children that will be of a good character, ideal character. So that's Vibhishana was part of that 4 children that came from Kaikashi and Vishrava, a very, very elevated Brahmana. So fast forward, this is Hanuman after the end of his journey, because we heard a little bit about his journey going to Lanka. And then his mission, we heard, his mission was to find Sita. And not just find Sita, but then reassure Sita that Ramachandra will come and redeem you. Many other things happened. One of the many things that happened was he said, if you want, I can take you myself right to Ram. One leap, zoom, off we go. You can be again united with Ram. He said, no. When you're soaring through the air, I might fall off. And besides, Ramchandra is the one that should come personally, because Ravana is the one that kidnapped me, and he should punish him. So I'll wait till Ramchandra comes. Many, nice exchange between the two. So Hanuman with the jewel item that Sita had given him, as Ram had given some ornament to show Sita. Sita gave an ornament to show Ram to verify, yes, I found him. So it's very nice, transcendentally nice. And they bid each other farewell. And Hanuman's business wasn't done. He wanted to teach a lesson, so he did, and this is the end of the lesson. He burned Lanka. He didn't go with the plan to burn Lanka, but that's what happened. So now Hanuman is watching the city of Ayodhya in flames. Mission accomplished, now to go back to inform Ramachandra. Meanwhile, in Ayodhya, after there was this conflagration and the fire and everything, the Rakshasas were having a meeting to decide what to do. So there's Ravana, Rakshasa Ravana, and they're discussing what happened, how did he get here, and how notice in the painting, there in the background, there's non-Rakshasas. Now, exactly who that's supposed to be, I don't know. Huh? Is it Vibhishan? Vibhishan? No. Anyway, maybe, but I don't think so. So Ravana is, what are we going to do, and who has what strength, and they're all we'll take care of anything that comes, because Hanuman went back to get Ram's reinforcements, and how they're going to get here anyways, and even if they come anyways, we're so powerful, and no one can touch us, and so forth and so on. And one of the persons in the assembly was his maternal grandfather, Malyavan. And he gave him wise advice. Just return Sita. It's really simple. Really simple. Yeah, you're a lusty guy. You're attracted, but just give Sita back. And our dynasty, we're not going to have more of what we just had. This big fire. Then further discussion. But Ravana couldn't hear any good advice because he was too attached to what he wanted. And now he's all powerful and filled with pride. Ravana's younger brother Vibhishan argued with Ravana, so they cannot possibly withstand such an army and should hand over Sita. He said the same thing, to obtain peace. They disagreed. And Vibhishan defected to Ram's camp with 4 ministers. So this painting is showing he's offering his respect to Lord Ramachandra with his 4 ministers over back on the other side of the sea. And they're the Vanras on the other side of the sea. So here these are words directly from the discussion between Vibhishan and Ravana. Give up that happiness and anger which destroys virtues. Seek pleasures that enhance fame. Be pacified. Live happily with sons and relatives, and restore Mitali to Rama, the son of Dasarath. O annihilator of enemies, we are seeing inauspicious omens since Sita arrived here. There's a description of the omens. This is a painting intended to depict some of those omens, but meteors falling from the sky, and when it's daytime, it's night, when it's night, it's day, and it's everything disturbed since Sita has come. So don't you understand what this means? O king, why have you desired Sita, who has a snake hood at her bosom, has poison of grief, has sharp fangs behind her gentle smile, and has 5 fingers of her palm as 5 heads of the snake called Sita? Now, he's not vilifying her. He's admonishing his brother for bringing trouble instead of becoming free from trouble. Why are you doing this? Ram's arrows will not leave you with life, even if you are guarded by the sun or wind god, or not even if you sit on the lap of Indra or the god of death, or even if you enter the sky or underwater. Now, Vibhishan he has faith. Imagine how compromised he is being in this place. All your ministers have abstained to pass this counsel to you. Whatever is seen or heard, it is to be told certainly by me. Hence, you ought to do according to a justification of things for the occasion. No, it's nice language, but do the right thing. And commentary. This is Sri Vaishnava Acharya's commentary. Vibhishan's advice was full of well-wishing, hitam, greatly beneficial, mahartam, gentle, filled with logic, hitu samhitam, and that which is applicable to past, present, and future. So his wisdom was appropriate, and Ravana didn't like wisdom. While Vibhishan advised in Ravana's favor with all good intention, Ravana, who was under the influence of death, who was holding on to a feverish anger, and was full of passion, spoke harsh words. So he spoke nicely, or with all good intention, with all the right messages. Here's his reply. Ravana said, one can live with a known enemy, or even with an angry and venomous serpent, but cannot stay together. One cannot stay together with one who professes to be a friend and devoted to an enemy. So you're speaking like a dear brother and a friend, my well-wisher, but you're devoted to an enemy. Just as honeybees do not have gratitude after drinking honey and satisfying themselves, the friendship with an unworthy person like you is of no use. Now he's warming up to, I would kill you, except you're my brother. He who, other than you, actually utters the aforesaid words in the way you have done, O Ranger of the Night, would have undoubtedly ceased to be this very moment. As for you, a curse upon you, O disgrace of your race. Rebuked by these words, Vibhishan, who had spoken what is right, rose in the airspace, mace in hand, along with his 4 ministers. So right in this assembly, they just rose into the air and quietly left. But when he quietly left, he had a few words to say before he left. Standing in airspace, the glorious Vibhishan, who was filled with indignation, actually addressed the following words at that moment to Ravana. O king, you, being my elder brother, may tell me what you wish. You are equal to father, being elder brother, and are to be honored. But you have not followed the righteous path. The words you spoke are not pardonable. O 10-headed king, fallen under the sway of death, you are foolish. You do not understand the well-prepared, good words spoken by me, wishing for your welfare. O king, those who speak pleasingly are always easier to find than those who will speak unpleasant but good words. Listeners of unpleasant words, though good, are difficult to find. So my speaking and your hearing and accepting, that's rare. And I didn't expect, but I had to speak the truth for your welfare. And so then he rose. He already is in the air speaking these words, and off he went. And here's that same painting again. There he is with his 4 ministers behind him. They're very loyal, very similar nature and similar mystic powers. Vibhishan, having addressed Ravana in harsh language, reached Rama and Lakshman in a short while. Now, it's a detail, but it's worth spending a few moments on. The leap of Hanuman was a big deal. All the Vanaras, they could jump so many miles or so many, distance and so forth. But it's not that they don't. He's the only one that could do it. Vibhishan could do it, and his 4 ministers could do it. And how did the whole city of Lanka get built, anyways? The city of the Rakshasas. They all obviously they could travel back and forth, and so forth. But the courage, as well as the prowess of Hanuman, is very special. Very special. So the scene is set, and what happens, it's very nice. This picture depicts there's Ramachandra greeting, but it's not exactly that Ramachandra was greeting. There was Sugriva, and through Sugriva, Ramchandra made the request. Vibhishan made the request. Please ask Ramachandra if he'll accept me. And of course the answer is yes. But Sugriva was the messenger, the conveyor of that request. And in the end, the back and forth and back and forth and back and forth and back and forth and back and forth, and Ram finally declared exactly what Hanuman, because everyone said what they had to say, and Hanuman was asked. Before he spoke, he was asked, and he said, there's nothing really to discuss. I understand Ramachandra has already accepted him. There's nothing really to discuss, because it's his nature. He's very compassionate, and anyone who approaches him, he'll give shelter. In this example, that example, the other example, it's just his nature. So he's already accepted, there's nothing really to discuss. Sugriva was not convinced. He wasn't like anti-Hanuman, but he wasn't convinced. So he then spoke several other things and several other things. There's a very nice discussion. We'll do this at another time. And here's, some opposition. There's Vibhishan and his 4 ministers. This doesn't show them zooming in the sky, but Ramchandra is inviting them. And the Vanaras are not so sure until he finally speaks. So this is a very important topic in Ramayana, and it gets a lot of attention by commentators. So here is, there's four characteristics of the person who wants to take shelter, the one who's giving shelter. Of course, Ramchandra is the one giving shelter, and Vibhishan is the one. But the same characteristics should apply to anyone who's seeking shelter. I possess nothing which I view as my shelter. Akinchana. You've heard the word akinchana before? Do you know what the meaning of it is? Kinchana. Means not, and kinchana, you're possessing something. So, akinchana is one who has nothing. Nothing material. Nothing material. So the nothing material, I'm possessing nothing, which I view as my shelter. Because persons in material life, they have shelter. They believe they have shelters. They're their kingdom and their wealth and their this and their that and the other thing, and it's all ephemeral. It's very insubstantial. It's not a place of shelter. But one who understands that there is no shelter for me in this world. Akinchana. One of the names of Krishna, Akinchana Gochara. He's the giver of shelter to those who have no material possessions. So, that's one half. And then the other half is I do have shelter. Since I have nowhere else to go to take shelter, I fully repose my shelter-taking spirit in the Sharanya. Ananya Gati Tvam. Tvam is like, somethingness, having the quality of Tvam. And I don't have any other, no other gati, or destination, or place of shelter, or goal. You're my only goal, you're my only destination. So my propensity for shelter taking is not in anything material, it's entirely in you. So these two terms, it's negative and positive, but it's the same thing. Put them together, it's the same thing. I have no material shelter, and you're my only shelter. That's from the one taking shelter. That's Vibhishan's side, or one who's surrendering unto Krishna, surrendering unto Ramachandra, surrendering unto the Supreme Person. Largely, in the sadhana stage, there's something spiritual and there's something material. We find contentment in possessing something. And then that's a mix. And it's just quite normal, it's quite natural, it's quite progressive. But you wind down the one and increase the other. That's sadhana. You diminish the darkness and you increase the light. By increasing the light, you diminish the darkness. They go together. So in the sadhana stage, there's a mix. And one, in honesty, one needs to acknowledge, I'm not there yet. I'm not at the akinchana, possessing nothing, and you're my only. But that's okay. Vibhishan had already reached that stage. And it's a teaching. This is from, Bhagavad Gita has its way, Mamekam Sharanam. Then there's the explanations of what that means in different sampradayas. So Ramayana has its, Vibhishan is the example. There are others, but Vibhishan is the primary example. And then there's Sharanya. Because one of the doubts that Sugriva has is, I don't trust him, because he knows Ravana's in the bad guy category. And in Ravana is going to lose. because you're in the good guy category and you're going to be victorious over the bad guy, because good always prevails. He's the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So he has a motive. He wants that kingdom, his brother's kingdom, the kingdom of Lanka, the golden city and the whole thing. He wants that power, that position. No light. Yeah, thank you. So Ramachandra explains, at length to Sugriva and everyone else there, don't think that I need all of you Vanaras to overcome Ravana with my eyelid. With my little finger, I could finish them all. You're being given some opportunity. And you've seen, he's not boasting, but the power that I have to maintain sanity and safety and shelter is without limit. There's no limit. That's the Shakti of the 4 items on the list. He can afford to do the above because he is all powerful and no one can harm him. But Saralata, without consideration, Saralata, without consideration of anyone's qualification or lack of qualification. If they take shelter, it's shelter. And that's his simple-heartedness. And he has the power to fulfill that simplicity. So if one tries to do that, but one doesn't have the power to do that, that can be a problem. But if one has the power, then certainly one can do. So finally, Sugriva, go find Vibhishan and tell him, please come. That means, are you convinced now? Are you sure you're convinced? You be the one that conveys the message back. So Sugriva does that, and he takes shelter. And then there's a formality that comes after that. Ram didn't have to do this, but he establishes him as the next king, even before Ramachandra, before Ravana is finished. They have a whole ceremony. They get water from the sea and bathe him and this and that and the other and ceremony, and he's the next king. He didn't come for that purpose. He came for shelter, but the very compassionate and all-powerful and all-wise Ramachandra made him the next king, even before the battle. And that's what happened after the battle. He's the next king. And as was appropriate, after the battle and the necessities of rituals for those who were killed in the battle was performed, he accompanied Ramachandra back to Ayodhya. Because if you recall, those of you that are familiar with Ramayana, you know, Ravana was such a fellow that his half-brother, Kuvera, he had a battle with Kuvera. And he beat Kuvera. He was very powerful, Ravana. And all of his property, the treasure of heaven, somehow treasures have money. I don't know how that happens, but all of his wealth and his Pushpaka Vimana. There's a whole history of how the Pushpaka Vimana, but it was a gift to Kuvera, and he stole the Pushpaka Vimana. So now the Pushpaka Vimana belongs to Vibhishan. And so they all the Vanaras and everything, because the Pushpaka Vimana could expand in size, and it carried everybody all the way back to Ayodhya. Vibhishan was with Ram when his coronation was done in Ayodhya. And then it was time for him to return. You know the story. Ramchandra gave gifts to everybody that participated with him. It's courtesy. gifts are given as an expression of gratitude. So he gave a family gift from the ancestors, the deity. You know the story. Going way, way back to Lord Brahma, and given in that his dynasty, the deity that ended up in South India. So with his Pushpaka of Vimana, Vibhishan was taking Ranganath all the way back to Ayodhya. No, not to Ayodhya, to Lanka. But he stopped because the deity indicated he wanted to be worshipped here in Rangakshetra. But he faced in the direction of Vibhishan, so he would always be protected, which is unusual in any place for a deity to face south. I mean, some people know this rule, some people don't. But those that know the rule, and the deity wants to be facing in a way that breaks the rule, to oversee and give protection to Vibhishan. And so it is. So, very, very special personality. And then another is the vow before Sarabhanga. We mentioned this briefly. In the transition from Balakanda to Ayodhya Kanda, when they enter the forest, one of the very first things that happens is they're met by some sages. And the sages have an ashram, and the ashram is, the head of that ashram is Sharabhanga, and Sharabhanga and his associates, they honor Lord Ramachandra. We see in the background there's Lakshman and Sita, and Ram is giving his blessings to the sages. No, the sages understand him to be the personality of Godhead. There's this blend between his identity and the Leela. As the Leela, he's a Kshatriya. He's the son of the emperor or the king. So he is the one that's capable of giving them protection. Here they are greeting him, receiving him nicely. Ram, Sita, and Lakshman, and other sages accompanying them into the forest. There's a very old illustration of the sage Sharabhanga. And here's a painting where you see in the backside there's the pile of corpses. Seeing a pile of corpses of the Rakshasas' victims, along with the grief of the sages, Ram took a vow to kill the ravaging Rakshasas. Now there's a lesson. He's a Kshatriya, and they're asking for the sages are asking for his protection. So how can a Kshatriya say no? So he said yes. Sita heard the vow, and she had some concern. You know what the concern is? The concern, it's a very long, very beautifully written section. She says, it is known from the scripture that even a noble, virtuous person can become corrupt. There are three causes: lies, illicit sex, and unprovoked cruelty. In your case, I know you very well. There's no lying, there's no illicit sex propensity within you. You always speak the truth, you live by the truth, that's who you are, inside and outside. And associating with another woman, that's not you. I know very well. But you've taken this vow to kill those who haven't harmed you. And then she tells this interesting story. Most of you know the interesting story. She tells the story of a sage who had become very, very, very austere. So austere that Indra got nervous. Maybe he wants to take over my heavenly kingdom. Uh-oh. So Indra came in the disguise of a warrior and made friendship with this sage, and then requested the sage, I'm going to go elsewhere for a while. Could you take care of my sword and take good care of it? So the sage said, sure. So he started carrying the sword around with him wherever he went to take care of the warrior's sword. And just by having his hand on the sword, he became corrupted. He felt a sense of power and started doing cruel things to others, and eventually became very violent and a wild man. Indra's plan worked, and he went to hell. And so Sita paused and said, my concern is the unprovoked cruelty. The sages, the Rakshasas haven't done anything to you, and you're taking a vow to kill them. There's a story I like that's along the same line. I said this once when here already, but Prabhupada's main headquarters, his home, was in Vrindavan. Maybe some of you have been to Vrindavan, and if you have, you've been to Krishna Balaram Mandir, and if you've been to Krishna Balaram Mandir, you go in the back side of the temple, and there's Prabhupada's quarters. And it's, very simple. It's clean and spacious, but simple. And one time he was in his quarters and he was quite ill, so he was just lying there, ill and unable to eat and unable to move and unable to do anything. So during a certain time of the year in Vrindavan, it's mosquito season. So it was one of those times. And mosquitoes were coming, and the devotees had, fans, handheld fans that were shooing the mosquitoes away. And Prabhupada lifted his hand and said, that's okay, you don't have to do that. They're harmless. And then sometimes they would land on his body and start to do what mosquitoes do when they land on someone's body, stick their nozzle in his body and attack him, draw blood. So he said, now you can slap them, because now he's an aggressor. When he's just zooming around, it's okay. So when someone is, this is Sita's point, when someone is aggressor, okay, but they've done nothing to you. And the sages are taking shelter. So Ram appreciates her thoughtfulness and responds in a very, very suitable way. He says, it's the duty of the king to give protection to the citizens. I'm not the king, but I'm the son of the king, the eldest son of the king. And by duty, we give protection to those who take shelter. And because there are others that are being harassed, just in the case of to protect them from harassment, therefore, it's the duty of a king. So Sita was pacified. So honor and honor corrupted, that's the theme. And now, finally, Ram slays Vali. We've covered this a little bit, so I'm not going to go into it in great detail, but this is a nice painting. You'll see it one more time. There's Sugriva having battle with Vali. Yes, I did. The history of how the two brothers had their dispute, because they're brothers, they were together. They're brothers that are together, but they became now at odds with each other. We just narrated that here? Yeah. Yes? No? Yes. Okay. So Vali took exception to what was really innocent on Sugriva's part, and he kicked him out. And he harassed him, and he ran, and Sugriva went to a place on top of the Rishimukh mountain because sage Matanga, who was not far away, and his ashram was not far away, he gave a curse to Vali. If you ever go to that mountain, you'll instantly die. So it was one safe place for Sugriva to go. So when he left the kingdom, that's where he went. The place where Vali wouldn't go. And he was always in fear because Vali's very powerful. And he knew it. So back to this vow of friendship, there's nice symmetry to all of this. Kabanda gave the advice, make friendship with Sugriva because Sugriva's in a similar situation. He's lost his wife, and you've lost your wife. Make friendship with him so you can assist one another to regain your wife. So there's the vow of friendship, and then when it came to who was going to do what first, Ram said, I'll help you first, and then you help me. So the help first was, I'll take care of Vali. And Sugriva was in doubt. Vali is very powerful. How powerful are you? Can you display your prowess so I can become confident? Because you want me to go have another wrestling match and you'll slay him, but how do I know? So you know what he did, the 7 salt trees, and he showed his power in different ways. So Sugriva became convinced he has sufficient power. So he went, as requested, to do combat with Vali. Now they're both very strong. Vali is superior in strength. But as Ramachandra requested, they met in a battle, and the battle was on and on and on and on and on. But eventually, Sugriva was being defeated because Vali was more strong. So he came back and said, why you didn't do anything? We covered this already, because I couldn't tell the difference between the two of you. We discussed this. Besides, their physical appearance was quite similar. When it came to then, Lakshmana gave his garland to Vibhishan, to Sugriva, then Ramchandra could identify who was who, and there's more of these old paintings, different art styles, celebrated event, and Vali was struck in the chest with an arrow. And when Vali was struck in the chest with an arrow, he was like, who are you? This was between me and my brother, and you're hiding behind a tree and shooting an arrow into my chest. Now there's a detail. Vali had a certain ornament or method by which he was invincible. But he wasn't invincible to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So Ramachandra, was able to do this, whereas others were not. Now, on the left, there's Sugriva with a nice garland, and on the right, there's Vali with an arrow in his chest. And he's looking to see where does the arrow come from. There's Ramachandra from behind the trees, and there's this whole discussion between the two about what kind of behavior is this? From behind a tree, in hiding, and you didn't come and do direct face-to-face combat, and this is violation of Dharma. What kind of person are you? So Ramchandra heard patiently, and one by one, he responded. Again, this is the Maryada Purushottama topic that we discussed the very first evening. So, after something's not right. Here we go. After Vali is before departing, he makes 3 gifts. He recognizes his wrong, and he accepts his wrongdoing. He forgives Sugriva for putting the rock in front of the cave and everything else, and restores the kingdom to him. The second is he had a son, Angada. He requested Sugriva to take care of his son, Angada, just like he was his own son. And a third is he had taken charge of the wife of Sugriva. So now he returned Ruma back to Sugriva, the wife of Sugriva. And as he's departing this world, then Tara, his wife, comes to grieve the departure of her beloved husband. She's very faithful to her husband. You know, how to be faithful to someone that has flaws. It's a nice teaching. Because, you know, in a contemporary world where Dharma is absent or is faded and practically gone, you know, it's all that the platform of being together, husband and wife, is on another platform. It's his liking, her liking, woo, woo, woo. And if that liking shifts or changes or modifies or becomes a little stormy, then, you know, it's see you later. Or I hope I don't see you later. Goodbye. No, divorce. It's not it's a byproduct of the absence of culture. It is certainly possible that someone who is virtuous in the association of someone who's not so virtuous, the not so virtuous person can take on the characteristics of the virtuous. It's certainly possible. And the scriptures are filled with such opportunity. So in any case, Tara is grieving the loss of her good husband. And that's the end of this presentation. So there's back to the main topic here. Morality and morality corrupted. I've understood one of the things that you like to do somehow or another, do a little summary at the end. So I'm going to do a little summary at the end. He upheld the word of his father at great sacrifice. 14 years. You know, he's one the same day. I really like it. When his father couldn't say, so Kaikeyi said, these were the 2 boons. And then when he heard the 2 boons, Ramchandra said, is that all, mother? I'll leave today. The day was his coronation. Is that all, mother? I'll leave today. So it's one of the opulences, detachment. It's one of the opulences, detachment, vairagya. But so he has all opulences in full, and he's not attached to anything, a kingdom or anything of this world. And to go to the forest for 14 years, this is the nature of service or servitude. It's very simple. What does the master want? That's it. I may want some clarification. What does my father is my master? In this case, Ramachandra and Dasarath. And whatever it is that he wants. And he couldn't say it, so Kaikeyi said it. So it's upholding the word of his father to do what his father wants. which is what KK wants. It's not what he wants. It's what she wants, and it's just so upholding the word of his father for 14 years instead of becoming the emperor of the world. Like, wow. And suitable for living in the forest for 14 years, the forest attire, and then all the events that take place when you live in the forest. Not easy life. Accepting Vibhishan within Ram's army of Vanaras. So one of the topics, I can't recall for sure, the compassion of Ramachandra, that he has all qualities in full, and compassion is one of them, and how compassionate was he to all living entities, that saralata, regardless of their, or simplicity, regardless of their qualification, lack of qualification, or their species, or their anything. He gave shelter to everybody by simply their submission, infection, and wanting to render some little service, whatever they could do. So that's the connection with Ramachandra, and Vibhishan was ready to give everything, and he got back everything. The vow, the protection vow, even though there was no direct attack or aggression from the Rakshasas to him. He's in the forest, and there's Rakshasas in the forest. But he's a protector. And so that nice exchange with Sita about beware of becoming unprovoked violence in the name of giving protection. The world should read Ramayana, I think. And the slaying of Ali, because we've heard substantial about slaying of Ali. Let's see if there's some discussion. Can we get the light on? Yeah, there you are. You have something already.
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna Maharaj. Amazing class, Maharaj, as usual. And question regarding Vibhishana. Maharaj, you mentioned in the class about the lineage of the family of Ravana.
Yes.
And about mother, and and you also mentioned about Vidura, compared draw lines.
Yes.
So we know Vidura is the incarnation of Yamaraja.
Yes.
So is there any connection to Vibhishana also? What is the previous life?
It's just a principle, it's not personal.
Oh.
The principle is the father is virtue, the follower of Dharma, and so the son was the follower of Dharma. And here it's, Vishrava, his father was a great Brahmana. So he was in the family of Kshatriyas, but had the character of a Brahmana. He was always truthful and fearless, and he became a king, but that was his never sway from virtue. That's Vibhishan. Just by character type, not by personality. Okay?
Okay. Come on.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. Maharaj, the first principle, upholding the word of his father. So now in the modern age, the father, he says, do not take the Krishna consciousness, but the son is willing to take. Then how to
navigate that one, huh? There are higher principles. So if one has the gift of understanding, of discerning higher principles, you take shelter of the higher principle. Now, most people don't follow this kind of dharma anyways, isn't it? But, those who are dharmic, they follow dharma. But then there's paradharma, there's higher principles to be honored. It's not the same, but it's something like when Parshuram instructed Bhishma to marry, I don't have to follow an instruction that goes against religious principles. I've taken a vow. And so he gave his reasons why, and I'm not going to follow that instruction. Now that was like bold and direct. So one with one's mother and father, one doesn't need to be so bold and direct or confrontational, but rather move in the direction of a higher order of principle. Mame kam sharanam.
So, Maharaj, if I say in my own life, I am practicing Krishna consciousness.
Good.
So, if I neglect listening my father's words, so they says that this is what ISKCON is teaching you. Lord Rama has, Lord Rama
And did
is.
your father give that argument to you?
Yeah.
Yeah?
So.
And then, my dear father, let's hold you up together with Dasarath. And how does it work? No, if you want to get into it. No, there's other answers to this question. One of those answers is what Chaitanya Mahaprabhu told Raghunath Das. Remember?
Yeah.
But you know what the words were? Raghunath Das was like, I want to be with you, I want to be with you, I want to be with you. And he said, don't be impetuous. It's not easy to get association like this. So go back home, conduct yourself as if you're a worldly person, and behaving as if a worldly person, and inwardly, now this is appropriate, this is not necessarily you or me or someone else, but for Raghunath Das, cultivate attachment inwardly. So he then demonstrated his ability to navigate his way in material life without all the details, because you know the details. You know the details?
Yes.
Yeah. So he was quite capable of handling himself. So don't be impetuous. This is Raghunath Das, not necessarily you. But the inward cultivation is the important, not the external do this or don't do this or do that or don't do that. The affinity or the internal cultivation of the adhikar to be a transcendentalist. Because isn't it true that younger generation people have a tendency to be rebellious? It kind of goes along with teenage life or young person's life. Whenever the older generation does, there's rebellion against what the older generation did. I don't want that. Then you get something else I want. So rebellion is not new, but there's a way to control it, and the way to control it is the Vedic system, and that's like submission and obedience to. But then the ones that one is submissive and obedient to should be qualified. As I am qualified as the follower, the leader should be also qualified. So therefore, then you, like somebody else that's in a similar situation, will have to assess the inner cultivation purpose in your life, because you can go off in denial of what your father wants, and then later on something else starts to move inside, and you've lost that relationship the affection, at least, temporary affection of your father, and that support structure that nature provides. And you went off in La La Land and you did silly stuff. So you have no position in any sphere. So make sure, two things, make sure that you have the inner cultivation of affinity for going in the direction of paradharma. And you examine yourself and ask somebody that is wise and a little detached from you and your circumstance to evaluate. Do you think this is, what do you see? When you look inside, what do you see? And you do that yourself. And then move incrementally, in steps in the direction of paradharma, in steps that you can maintain. Quite likely, other persons in the room have had something, not the same, but something with some similarities. I had mine. My little autobiography is a little different than yours, but there was a period of time where Mom and Dad, they weren't like in opposition, but they were nervous because I was, heading for stardom, and I stopped. I was, materially, academically, and career, and is heading for, etc. And then I desisted. So, like, what's going on with our son? And he's getting into that. What's that? So they told me later. We wanted to check out and see what you're getting into. And when they found out, they did their homework, and they found it's genuine. So they were relieved that at least it's not cuckoo land. It's something genuine. And then when I became like a leader in the Hare Krishna movement, they were satisfied. I mean, I found out later. They didn't tell me this, but I found out later. Not just that I had devoted myself to Krishna's service, and they were proud of me. They were proud that I, had a name in the organization. Our son. That was them. So each of us are a little different. And I was always with it. I didn't deviate from respect, but I didn't always do what they said. But they trusted me enough that I didn't put up a blockade and say, well, you're being told. It was softer, but it was directionally somewhat similar. So those two things. Internal evaluation and internal cultivation and evaluation. And then the steps that I take, they're sustainable. And then there are support structures that help you sustainable. So sadhu sangha that can not just pat you on the back and, yeah, you're defying your father. Well done, well done. Not like that, but paradharma in steps that are sustainable. Well done. Let me support you in maintaining those steps. So wholesome association to maintain those doable steps in the direction of higher principle, paradharma. Okay?
Thank you.
This is personal. What you're sharing is personal, so it requires a little bit of sensitivity to give a proper response. Because it is a dharmic principle. We don't just toss it. You have to consider it, how to do, in what way. Uh-oh. Usually when that happens, there's like a loud scream. Ah! Sky is falling! Didn't happen. Okay, someone else?
Maharaj,
Yes.
one small question. Like Lord Ramchandra is shown as color green. I want to know if his color as green.
You want to know his color?
Yes, yes, Maharaj.
Newly mown grass, or like that, you know, this, when springtime comes and leaves come on the trees, that kind of color, dark green. No, it's not dark green of this world, it's another coloration, another hue, but that's his beauty, his luster. Is that right?
Yes, yes. Yeah, that's my question.
Huh?
That was my question. Yeah.
Okay.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. What should we do when somebody who is close to us does not follow dharma? Like in the case of Vibhishan and Ravan.
Okay, like having a Ravana brother. What do you do when you have someone that's close to you that's adharmic? A lot depends upon you and depends upon them. In other words, what Vibhishan did is maybe not what you're going to be able to do. Vibhishan, was highly evolved, highly educated, highly articulate, and he didn't mind. He's a little confrontational. So, many of us wouldn't. I personally wouldn't take that path in most cases. Not because because it's going to get a big pushback, and no forward movement. But something that how to make these decisions is you and them. And is there any door or window or chimney or back door or something that you can get in their heart? And one of the best is if you can find a place in their heart, if they can see you in a place where you're not threatening them, and there's a place in their heart for you, then gently you can say some things. Here's a for example in that line. There's a devotee somewhere outside this country, and they have made a friendship with another devotee, and the other devotee has understood this particular individual is not adharmic, but they've been trampled on. So they're not trusting. They're a little testy. So this devotee wrote to me, they just revealed, the neighbor who was advising them, they're just very kind. And now they're in their heart. They don't tell them anything. They don't, how many rounds are you chanting? They don't do any of that. How many pages of Bhagavad Gita are you studying? They don't do any of that. They're their friend. To the point where, so it depends on the individual, but when the door to their heart is open and they let you in, you don't take advantage of that, but titrate, you know that word? Little by little by little, little by little by little, something. There's, I'm going to invite Satyasar to send me another little note. The other little note is a statement of what is a friend. So become a friend to such a person. And be accepting of who they are, what they are, where they've been, and whatever. And gently encourage them to grow. And to some persons, the answer is going to be no. Or they're not even going to, that just dismiss you. You've lost the door is now closed, locked. But so if you can enter into their heart, and once you know that they know, and they know that you know that they know, and all that stuff, you can gently. So what the gently can be is just take prasadam together. And things that are, what are things that are meaningful? That this is, dealing with avidya to get to vidya. There's a very nice seminar, recently I've heard it, where Hari Parshad Prabhu is speaking on the Sri Ishopanishad, one of the things in the class, Sri Ishopanishad verse number 9 and verse number 11. Vidyam cha yas tad vedo bayam zaha. You know the verse? You know a little bit? So look at the two verses. And you have to, if you just do one and not the other, then you're not going to go very far, and they're not going to go very far. So honor the fact that they have some inclination for avidya, because they're more leaning in that way than the vidya side. So accept it. Find some things that aren't contaminating for you that you can do with them, that's even in the avidya category, but it's building a friendship so that it can leverage a little bit of the avidya into the avidya. Purposeful. Prabhupada's expression is, learn how to fish without getting wet. Because the risk is, you can become like that by, behaving in that way, and it becomes like the fellow with the sword. You become corrupted by bad association. So don't do that. Don't make that mistake. So that's this internal. Your internal connection needs to be sufficiently strong so that you can genuinely be a friend without becoming yourself polluted by their ill disposition or adversity to Krishna. So it depends on you and the person and the situation, the dynamic of the relationship.
Thank you, Maharaj.
In the back, that one of the ladies. Oh, go ahead.
So in the Mahabharata.
In the Mahabharata.
Yeah, in one of the in Duryodhan's side, there was one of his brothers named Yuyutsu. He joined the Pandavas. After the war, what did he do?
Duryodhana's brother Yuyutsu joined Pandava's army. What did he do?
After
What
the.
happened after the war?
What happened after the war? To whom? To whom? Yuyutsu, I don't know. I'm not, but I'll tell you what. You make a written little description and I'll research it. I'll do my homework. Because I know some people that are they really love Ramayana, they really love Mahabharata. I know some people that are a little bit allergic to Mahabharata also. But you write it and I'll research it. And I'll get back to you before we leave. Okay? But something written. Now there's a lady back here. Oh, you have something?
Yeah.
Okay.
I have a question regarding the Ramayana. So when Hanuma goes into Lanka,
Yeah.
he is in a very small form and he searches for Sita and everything. Once he finds Sita Devi, he shows his bigger form, like he
Yes,
grows
big,
into a
big,
mountain and
yeah.
other stuff. But at that point, there is a risk of him being sighted by all the Rakshasas and fight with him, and he might even get captured. We know he's powerful and all that stuff. He has the varas and all that stuff. But the question is, if he got caught in and he was never able to go back to Rama, then the message would have still never been reaching to Rama, and he would have, he would have not made.
Yeah, it'd have been a big mess.
Yeah, that's the question. Why did he take that risk rather than once he found Sita, he would have just gone back, but he stayed, talked to Ravana,
Oh,
and
he's
then
powerful.
we know that. But I'm like
Yeah,
in the
that's why.
in the perspective of the story.
But he has the power. He could destroy. He doesn't need a whole army. He could destroy them all. He showed. But he wanted, as the servant of Ramachandra, Sita wanted Ramchandra should come. So it was, he had the power to destroy them all, not just burn Lanka. He had the power to finish the whole thing, and he had it. He had the power. He had, powers from the demigods. He had powers beyond anything. But he is in the mood of a servant, and the servant wants to do what the master wants, and so he did as his intelligence said. I had to give warning. Ravana, give Sita back, and others had tried, and the answer was no. Kill him. No, you can't kill him. Anyway, so he could have what you're suggesting, but he didn't, because he had some other plan. Give a warning. Ram's coming. You're all going to be destroyed. Give Sita back. It's very simple.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. One question which is not clear to me, I have a thought. This is on Ravan and Marichi Samvad, wherein Ravan and Marichi, when Ravan is telling Marichi, become a deer, so I will go and abduct Sita.
Yeah.
And basically Marichi was given the choice, either you go and go there, and Marichi thought, either I get killed by Ravan now by not listening to him, or I go there and be killed by Lord Ram.
Yeah.
So it's better to go and be killed by Lord Ram.
Yeah.
And
that's very reasonable.
When he got shot and he got the arrow, he could have easily, and that arrow was by Lord Ram, he could have died in the hands of Lord Ram, but then he decided to take the shout, hey Lakshman, hey Sita. My confusion is, why did he do that? Is that just part of the Leela? Because he could have died, but he did.
Leela.
Okay.
He has a role to play in the Leela.
That's
You're not Ishwara. You can write the script a different time, a different Ramayana. He's just following, the super soul within his heart. He's doing what the super soul within his heart tells him to do. The intelligence that he was given came from super soul to do what he did. Could he have done it? Yeah. It would have been a different Ramayana. Very different. And you're not the author.
Hare Krishna.
Yeah?
Thank you, Maharaj.
Okay. Behind you, in the back.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, thank you so much for a beautiful lecture. I have a question with reference to the conversation happening between Ravana and Vibhishan. So when Vibhishan is giving all good advices, and when he sees that it's falling into deaf ears, he steps away. So my question is, in a sense, that when to step away. I mean, you have a
Your
very close...
question is, say it again?
My question is that when do we know that we should step away? Like if I have a close relationship with someone, and if I give them some good advices, but if we realize over a period of time that it's going into deaf ears, when is it the good time to step away? Just like Vibhishana, he stepped away after certain point when he realized that Ravana is not going to listen.
Yeah.
He's going to die soon.
Well, it's not, I'm assuming I'm assuming certain things. He didn't just all of a sudden, once upon a time, blast him. There were
Multiple.
little by little, little by little,
Yeah.
little by little, little by little, and now it's not little by little anymore.
Yeah.
It's built up.
Yeah.
And he's got the bazooka out, and he's aiming it right at his dear elder brother, who is respectful, but he's a fool. He's in the clutches of death, and he recognizes that. So your question is, when do we step away?
If we are in similar situation, if we are in similar situation, where we try, explain, because they are close to us, and then in spite of, so many, efforts, if you realize that it's simply going into the deaf's ear, then when to step away, just like
Yeah.
Vibhishana, when to step away.
What the question you're asking is very similar to the comment that I made about Vidura. At a certain point, there was no service for him anymore. It wasn't just he was insulted. There was no service for him anymore. He tried, and he tried, and it was like death. So let me go do some service. That's, not just throwing ghee into ashes. Let me do that. And then the service he had, the idea he had for, this is Vidura, I need purification. I can't just go to Krishna and do service for Krishna because I've been in this contaminating association for too long. I need to purify. So pilgrimage for 1 year. So, and then in the course of that, there was some service. And then more service. And so doors were open because of his service mood. No, back to the question. When there's no service anymore, that takes intelligence. You may be, and then maybe, that, at a certain point, so it takes intelligence to know when that point is. And then, I don't want to compromise my service. I don't want to become like these people with beans in their ears. I want to be able to hear and relish. So let me go where there's some opportunity for service. That's my, where the line is drawn. And that takes intelligence. And same thing, intelligence comes from super soul. So we learn scripture, we see what different personalities did, we see some guidelines, and then we look inside, and our relationship with Krishna is going to determine. And then our spiritual master, or those persons that are guiding us in our spiritual life, we consult them.
Thank you so much, Maharaj.
Okay. Anything else? So the ladies' side has been kind of quiet. That's okay, you can be quiet. Online question, then we're finished.
What is the difference between liking Mahabharata and Ramayana concepts, Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam, other scriptures? Please clarify.
This is off topic. I've learned something, a little sharing. A fair amount, maybe like 3 to 4 hours today have been spent in finalizing travel to China. Because of the Middle East situation, and there was an international plan that I had to rework it because of all of that mess. So I'm going to China. And then, so one of the things I've learned with the Chinese devotees is they're very curious. They don't have temples like we have, or bhakti vriksha groups like we have. They don't have freedom like we have. They're restricted. So when they get an opportunity with a sannyasi online, they ask anything under the sun. So I have this little flashcard. It says, ask them, is this on topic? We just spent, so it goes like this. Prabhupada would ask students who are asking him some question, is this on topic? And if the answer was no, then Prabhupada would say, we just spent 30, 40 minutes discussing one topic, and if we go in the direction of anything under the sun, then all that's going to be lost. The momentum will be lost. So he declined. So it's a nice question, but it's not on topic, and so another time. Okay, we're ready to conclude? That's it? Online? Okay, our host.
Hare Krishna Guru Maharaj, Council want to tell little summary?
What's going on?
Hare Krishna Guru Maharaj, thank you so much for the class. So you talked about how
You're gonna do the summary? No. Because I already did it. Knowing that that was likely to come, I did it already. Is that okay? You want to say something else besides summary?
What do you learn? What do you learn? What do you learn?
Maybe I did the wrong thing. I shut him down.
It's okay. Thank you, Guru Maharaj, and I respectful obeisances to you and being your divine wisdom and the knowledge, and you, as always, our anchor to progress our divine path, and being our inspiration. And we wish that we always be your get your mercy. And thank you, Guru Maharaj, and His Holiness Rinpoche Maharaj ki. And let's have one round of Maha Mantra for Maharaj.
Hare Krishna,
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare